When will they arrive? Mia cried out through her groans, clutching at the headboard of the bed. Her face was pale and cold, sticky streams of sweat running down her cheeks. Mia, hang in there. The paramedic said they can't do without a surgeon. Since you can't be hospitalized, they will deliver the baby at home, replied a short elderly woman, gently wiping Mia's forehead. Mia calmed down a little. Grandma Catherine was her only family. How much she had to endure. Having lost everyone in the war, she survived without parents, without brothers or sisters. As she grew older, young Catherine devoted all her efforts to work and family. And when Mia's grandfather Ben died in an accident at the factory, Catherine was left alone with a little one in her arms. Years passed. Life gradually improved, but Mia's grandmother never remarried. She gave all her care and love to her daughter. Maggie, Mia's mother, had a peaceful childhood and carefree youth. Catherine worked hard and was able to provide her daughter with a better life. And when one day Maggie told her mother that she had a young man and was going to marry him, Catherine realized that her efforts had not been in vain. And what a joy it was for her when her granddaughter, chubby little Mia, was born. It was impossible not to fall in love with this baby with big eyes. And there was no one who could match Catherine in caring for the girl, to whom she dedicated all her free time. But everything suddenly ended that rainy September evening. Mia's parents were in an accident. Clint, Mia's father, died on the spot. Maggie, after lying in intensive care for about a week, died from hemorrhaging. Catherine's grief knew no bounds, and if it hadn't been for little Mia, her heart would not have endured that insurmountable pain and sorrow. But have you already decided what to name your son? Catherine asked to cheer Mia up a bit. Jake, she quickly replied, then immediately fell silent. The inner pain and resentment were stronger than the physical. Mia turned to the wall to hide her tears from her grandmother, which were continuously streaming down her cheeks. Seems like they've arrived, the old woman exclaimed, quickly heading to the door. In the window appeared the paramedics, who were discussing something excitedly with Mia's grandmother. A few minutes later, the door opened, and a man with a suitcase in his hand entered the room. He cautiously approached the bed where Mia lay and sat on a chair next to her. "Hello." "Don't worry," the young doctor tried to calm the girl. "You know that with your condition, a surgeon's assistance is needed. We'll prepare everything for the delivery, and in an hour Jake will arrive," he added in the same soothing voice. Today is just Jake's day, Mia thought, smiling to herself. Maybe I'll finally be lucky with this Jake. Catherine bustled around the house, carrying out the young doctor's orders. She was glad to have something to occupy herself with. As memories of past losses began to trouble her heart, after about 40 minutes, all preparations were completed. The doctor glanced at his watch, expecting the surgeon to arrive any minute. Suddenly the paramedic rose from his chair. "Jake has arrived," he said and hurried to meet the arriving doctor. Anxiety took Mia's breath away, and to calm herself a bit, she asked for water. The door creaked, and several people entered the room. Mia felt a tremor throughout her body and increasing dizziness. "Ammonia," shouted a familiar voice. "She's losing consciousness." Mia felt a sharp smell in her nose and came to her senses. "Is that you? What are you doing here?" Mia weakly asked, not believing her eyes. "I'd like to know what you're doing here too." "But it doesn't matter," Jake said angrily. "I'm not going to be part of this. I'm leaving," he added sharply, heading for the door. "Jake!" Mia called out with the remaining strength she had. "But he's your son." The surgeon stopped abruptly, just a few steps from the door. "Mia, why this charade? I haven't seen you in almost 3 years. I didn't know anything about you, and now you're telling me this is my child? Are you out of your mind? He shouted in anger. Silence filled the room. Everyone stood still, not understanding what was happening. What do you mean, 3 years? Mia asked, sobbing. You left me as soon as I told you I was pregnant. I don't know how I survived all of this. The severe stress caused a pathology. I don't even know how I managed to carry our son. Mia's vision darkened, and she felt herself slipping away. She heard voices growing fainter and fainter. Lift her pelvis. 2 cc's. A few minutes later, Mia woke up in an unfamiliar place. A high white ceiling loomed above her, and bright sunlight streamed through a window. She's conscious, a woman's voice said clearly. Call the doctor. Mia tried to turn but felt a sharp, penetrating pain in the lower part of her body. Where's my son? She barely managed to say with dry lips. Your little warrior is fine, the same voice replied. Such a big boy, with chubby cheeks. Probably looks just like his dad. Mia immediately remembered what had happened and struggled to understand what it all meant. It was Jake, she had no doubt. A swirl of thoughts began to unwind, and Mia reached back into her memories. She saw herself at 18, passionately in love with flowers. All she thought about was moving to the city and opening a flower shop. Mia, you need a lot of money for that, and we don't have it, Catherine would say, shaking her head. Where would we get that kind of money here in the village? She would add in frustration. Grandma, I'll go to the city and start by working in a flower shop. Once I learn everything, then I'll try to open my own, Mia insisted. It's my passion, you know how much I love flowers, she would say in her defense. Looking into Catherine's dark blue eyes, Mia heard. All right, Mia, go ahead. But if it doesn't work out right away, come back, the old woman said, resigned. Mia understood that it would be tough in the city. But she wasn't afraid of difficulties and believed she could achieve her dream. The money Catherine had saved was enough to rent a small room. The place turned out to be quiet and peaceful. Within a week, Mia found a job. A florist's assistant was needed in a large flower shop near the mall. Mia understood that knowledge wasn't gained easily, and she fully immersed herself in work. The shop owner was initially cautious about the young girl, but seeing her determination and quick thinking, he soon became fond of her. One evening, Mia was returning home. The day had been long and hard, it was wedding season, and the work was overwhelming. Suddenly, someone called out to her. Mia turned and saw a young man approaching from a slight distance. She noticed a group of guys who seemed to be watching the scene closely. Miss, please play along. The young man looked at her with pleading eyes. What do you want? Mia asked wearily. You see, I lost a bet to those guys over there by the fountain, and now I have to do whatever they want, the guy replied, embarrassed. And what do they want? She asked, puzzled. They said I have to meet a girl they choose and invite her to the movies, the young man said, lowering his eyes. You can tell them my name is Mia, the stranger replied with a smile. There was silence. The guy didn't seem to be leaving, as if he wanted to say something else. Anything else? Mia asked, a bit annoyed. How about the movies? The guy said, blushing. Mia wanted to burst out and give him a piece of her mind, but unexpectedly she answered, okay. The young man turned and quickly ran back to his friends. Halfway there, he abruptly turned his head and shouted, tomorrow at 7 by the cinema. Mia was hungry and tired. All she wanted then was to get home as quickly as possible. She walked briskly, sinking into thoughts about work, and the memory of being invited to the movies soon slipped from her mind. The next day didn't allow for leisurely activities, and Mia tirelessly created wedding bouquets. These roses will balance the airy white gypsophila well. Let's add a few more pastel tones and a couple of light green leaves, Mia muttered to herself. She always talked while arranging flowers. She felt they could hear and understand her. She had her own unique taste, which many customers had already come to appreciate. Despite her youth, Mia had created several bouquets that were particularly popular in the city. I wonder who will make the bouquet for my wedding. A strange question popped into Mia's head. But I will get married someday, she said aloud, smiling to herself. Then she suddenly jumped out of her chair, exclaiming, I have a date today. My first real date. She then added sadly, it's silly. That guy has probably already forgotten that he invited me to the movies. Mia stayed late at work, but she still wanted to take a walk. She slowly wandered through the nearly deserted streets. Memories of her early childhood overwhelmed her, and she immersed herself in cherished images. She recalled a funny little girl who got hold of her mother's lipstick. The little fashionista, with crimson cheeks and bright red lips, admired herself in the mirror. Her mother's uncontrollable laughter sounded, and the young beauty shyly lowered her eyes. Mia remembered waiting for her father to come home from work. Somehow, there was always a gift from the bunny in his pocket. What a generous hero he was, fulfilling all the little Mia's wishes. She even asked her dad to tell her where he lived so she could thank him for everything he had done for her. Mia was abruptly awakened from her reverie by loud voices and found herself walking past the cinema. It was already late, but she wanted to see what was showing and approached the theater. I thought you wouldn't come, but some strange feeling made me wait for almost 2 hours, someone said unexpectedly behind her. Oh, it's you, Mia said in surprise. Sorry, but honestly, I wasn't planning on coming. I ended up here by chance, she added, somewhat embarrassed. Does anything in this life happen by chance? The stranger said in a rather mature tone. Let's go, we can still catch the last show, he said, taking Mia by the hand. To her surprise, the film was light and funny. Mia and Jake, she learned that was his name, laughed uncontrollably throughout the movie and went home happy. It turned out that this wasn't their last meeting. The young couple started seeing each other almost every day, and soon a genuine friendship blossomed between them. Jake was finishing his residency, and all his dreams were tied to a career as a surgeon. After his mother died 5 years ago, saving lives became his main goal. Mia had achieved good success at her job and started thinking about her own flower shop. They decided to wait until Jake finished his studies and then have a big wedding in Mia's village. But one evening, Jake rushed to Mia's workplace. He was disheveled and frightened, so agitated he could barely speak. Mia, a deep unfamiliar voice suddenly pulled her out of her memories. Mia flinched and tried to turn her head. Stay still, or I'll come over, the voice boomed. But, my dear girl, I congratulate you. With your diagnosis, not only carrying the baby but giving birth to a healthy boy is a miracle. By the way, this miracle even has a name, Jake. You're lucky, he's a surgeon from God. So young, yet such a talented doctor, the doctor concluded and began giving instructions to the nurse about Mia's care. Mia only now realized that what puzzled her most was that Jake had indeed become a surgeon. But how was this possible? Her mind couldn't solve this puzzle just yet. My beloved granddaughter, Mia heard Catherine's voice. The sunken eyes of the old woman told Mia what her grandmother had endured over the past few days. Dear Grandma, everything is fine, Jake and I are okay. In a few days, they'll bring me the baby, Mia said, taking Catherine's hands in hers, trying to calm her down. After eating some of Catherine's favorite cooking, Mia addressed her. "Grandma, did you hear when Jake returned to town?" "I don't know, my dear. But they say he appeared here a few months ago." "People love him here. He has a good reputation," Catherine replied wearily. "The doctors who came to visit us yesterday told me. But I haven't been able to ask him myself." Seeing her grandmother's fatigue, Mia asked her to go home. In the evening, Dr. Bass visited Mia again. "Alan, where is this surgeon Jake?" she asked indifferently, trying not to show her interest. "Mia, you know, he is very valuable here. He went to the district center on an emergency call," the doctor calmly replied. "Has he been working with you for a long time?" Mia persistently continued. "Mia, why do you need to know? Be glad that he saved you and your baby. Why are you interested in his personal life?" Alan asked in surprise, then added, "Probably about 8 months. He doesn't talk about himself much." Mixed feelings overwhelmed Mia's heart. On the one hand, she was very hurt by Jake's actions. On the other, something about this whole story didn't seem right. Mia stayed in the hospital for about 10 days. The baby was already stronger, but Mia was still weak. Dr. Bass promised to discharge her in a week. Catherine had prepared everything for the great-grandchild's arrival. A crib with a patchwork quilt and an embroidered pillow stood by the window. A large basket of toys was nestled beside it. Mia's grandmother and their neighbor Grandpa Dave came to pick her up in his old car. "This is for you, Mia," the elderly man handed her a bouquet of pink gladioluses. "Grandpa Dave, thank you so much. They are so beautiful," Mia exclaimed, admiring the flowers. "Mia." Mia suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Alan, hello," she replied happily. "I'm very happy for you, very happy," the doctor said, placing his hands on Mia's shoulders. "By the way, Jake is here today." "Please wait," Mia suddenly said to Catherine and Grandpa Dave. "I'll be back soon." Mia stood at Jake's door, hesitant to enter. Suddenly, the door opened. "Jake! Jake, can I talk to you?" she asked in a trembling voice. "I'm sorry, I'm busy," Jake said coldly. "Jake, I don't understand what happened. What did I do wrong? Why did you leave?" "Enough!" Jake snapped angrily. "I've had enough of your made-up stories. If I hadn't seen enough of people like you over the years, maybe I would have believed you." Jake turned and walked away, leaving Mia sobbing by the window. Wiping her tears and composing herself a bit, Mia ran to her grandmother and baby. The next few months, Mia spent caring for her son. It can't be said that she forgot about Jake, but her little boy warmed her heart, keeping her from falling into despair. Winter was approaching. One morning, while Mia was tending to her baby, a breathless neighbor ran into the house. "Mia, just don't worry." "What happened?" Her grandmother jumped to her feet. Grandma Catherine slipped and fell off the store steps. "She has a severe hip fracture," Aunt Molly finished, crying. Mia let out a cry. Dressing her son and grabbing all necessary things, she rushed to the hospital. They wouldn't let Mia into Catherine's room, so she and the baby waited by the door. She closed her eyes to gather herself a bit. "You can't go in yet," she heard a familiar voice above her head. "How is she? What will happen to her now?" Mia couldn't hold back her tears. "It's a complicated case. It will be difficult. She might not be able to walk again," Jake replied dryly but honestly. "I beg you, please help her. She and my son are all I have," she pleaded, sobbing. "At least you have them," the surgeon said somewhat distantly, then paused and added more gently, I'll do everything I can. Catherine understood that she might not be able to walk. But even in a wheelchair, she could still help Mia. Live, just live, she whispered to herself, enduring the intense pain. Jake kept his word, he really did his best, and Mia's grandmother started to recover quickly. Jake, Catherine said tenderly one day to the doctor, I know it's not my business. But if you had seen the state Mia was in when she came home. I didn't even know if she could be saved. But she kept saying, I will carry the baby to term. If we die together. She loved you. I don't know what happened between you in Chicago, but I do know for sure that there was never any malice in Mia. In Chicago? Jake asked in surprise. Yes, Mia's grandmother continued. 3 years ago, you suddenly left for Chicago. You had a difficult situation, and Mia decided to go with you. You dropped out of school and opened your own auto repair shop in Chicago. After all, you were doing quite well. If you had just met someone else and told Mia about it, it would have been easier for her. I have never been to Chicago, and I never had an auto repair shop, the surgeon said in confusion. At first, Jake felt angry inside, thinking that he was being deceived again, but the sincerity of this elderly woman stirred strange feelings in him. Hello, Jake, he heard a familiar voice from somewhere far away. Oh, it's you. Please come in. I think Catherine will be glad to see you, said the doctor, and he abruptly walked out the door. Mia, he is a bit strange. As if it wasn't about him, he said he had never been to Chicago, Mia said thoughtfully, looking out the window. You know, grandmother, this is a strange story overall, the elderly woman, wise with experience, replied. Time will tell, my dear, it will put everything in its place. Grandpa Dave arrived to pick up the grandmother in the same old car. Mia was busy in the hospital room, gathering her grandmother's things. Just look at this boy, he looks just like his father. Well, Jake, she laughed cheerfully. Excuse me, someone unexpectedly said from behind them. I brought the discharge papers. Jake approached the bed where Catherine lay. His gaze suddenly fell on the little boy. The boy looked joyfully at the doctor and offered him a half-eaten cookie. Thank you. You eat it yourself, the surgeon said with a slight smile. His hand reached out to pat the child, but he quickly pulled it back and walked out swiftly. Catherine realized that she was confined to a wheelchair and, to avoid being a burden to Mia, she had to learn to do household chores. Mia, in turn, also understood that without a job, she couldn't manage everything, money was catastrophically scarce. The owner of the flower shop where Mia used to work had closed it and moved to Washington. She had no other acquaintances left in the city. Mia decided to make beautiful decorative boxes and bouquets of dried flowers and offer them to shops. Mia, maybe that's enough? Go to bed, she heard Catherine's voice from the next room. Dawn will break soon, Grandma. Just a little more, Mia replied, falling asleep on her feet. Today I need to take my work to the city. A flower shop wanted to see them. I'm almost finished, don't worry. Mia spent a sleepless night, and after dozing off on the road for more than an hour, she finally arrived in the city. Hello, Mia said, entering the flower shop. I'm here about the gift boxes and dried flower bouquets. Please wait. I'll call the store manager, the salesperson replied politely. The manager invited Mia to a small table where they could calmly review her work. I need a bouquet. This one, please, Mia heard a familiar voice behind her. Mia turned sharply. Jake was standing by the display, choosing flowers. Beautiful bouquet. These kinds of bouquets were particularly popular a few years ago, said a middle-aged woman pleasantly. I know. I even know who the author is, replied the man in the gray coat. Mia shuddered. Could he still remember? But I really liked your work, Mia heard the director's voice. Collaboration. Mia didn't want Jake to see her. Pretending to have dropped something, she bent down. The door creaked, and the man left the shop. I don't understand anything, Mia muttered to herself, walking briskly to the bus stop. If he still remembers my bouquet, how could he have left me and our child? What's going on? God, give me an answer. I'm just going crazy. Mia decided to tell her grandmother what had happened. You know, Mia, talk to him. There's no other way to find out the truth, Catherine advised. You're right, Grandma. Next time I go to the city, I'll visit him. Mia spent nearly the entire week replaying their upcoming conversation in her mind. She decided to tell Jake everything that had accumulated in her soul. Finally, Friday arrived. After finishing all her errands in the city, Mia hesitantly walked towards the hospital. Through the greenery of the tall poplars, the familiar gray walls appeared. A few minutes later, closing her eyes, Mia knocked quietly on the door. Come in, a distant voice called out. Mia nervously licked her lips and entered. Jake, we need to talk, she said, and not giving him a chance to object, quickly continued. I think we are missing something, and there's something that has confused us both. Please, listen to me. Then, 3 years ago, when you came to my shop, all agitated and pale with fear, I never doubted for a second that I would never leave you. You told me you had saved a poor girl from assault and that now this gang of thugs would be after you. You said you dropped out of school and were leaving for Chicago. I went with you. That evening, I left everything, my beloved job, my home, and my dear grandmother. Mia paused to catch her breath. She glanced at Jake, who was completely astonished. What girl? What gang? Mia, what are you talking about? For the first time in so long, he called her by her name. I came to your shop the next day, and they told me you had left with your lover. When I asked questions, your boss just shrugged and showed me a note. Timmy, you've done so much for me, but I need to leave urgently. My beloved is in trouble, and I can't leave him. Thank you for everything. Yes, that was my note. But how could you have read it? Maybe you read it when I left it on the table in the shop? Mia said desperately. Mia, I read it the day after you left. I couldn't have seen it earlier, Jake responded somewhat aggressively. I don't know what's going on, but I know for sure that I'm telling the truth, and I can prove it. After you left, I decided not to get into any confrontations. I just buried myself in my studies. I was noticed and offered to complete my residency in Washington. I successfully defended my thesis there and started working at a local hospital. God, I don't understand anything. That evening you said you dropped out of school and would never return to medicine. In Chicago, you worked at an auto repair shop and a year later opened your own, Mia nervously mumbled. At that time, I didn't even know how to drive. How could I work there? Jake shouted, slightly enraged. Silence fell. Are you sure it was me? Jake asked unexpectedly. Yes, it was you. But somehow you changed after we arrived in Chicago, Mia answered uncertainly. What exactly changed? Jake insisted. You started eating soup. In the evenings, you liked to drink beer, you didn't communicate with anyone, often stayed alone, and you didn't want children, she recalled tensely. I thought it was some aftermath of the stress you went through in the fight with the gangsters. Mia, I still don't eat soup. I don't like beer at all, and I want to have children. Jake's last sentence seemed to slip out accidentally, and he blushed a little. You also had scars on your back, Mia said quietly, from that fight. Mia, I'm sorry, I can't take this anymore, Jake said nervously. Let's postpone this conversation for later. Mia returned home feeling lost. She couldn't understand whether Jake was telling the truth or lying. And if he was lying, then why? She decided not to say anything to her grandmother until she could clarify the situation. The next few weeks were very busy, and Mia spent hours creating decorative elements for her works. It was Saturday, and the day was coming to an end. Mia was busy at her work table, while Catherine played with her great-grandson in her room. Suddenly, the door opened, and Jake appeared on the threshold. I wanted to check on Catherine, he said timidly. Jake, come in, the elderly woman said joyfully. How are you feeling? The doctor asked professionally. Thanks to you, I'm still alive, Catherine replied cheerfully. You two talk, and I'll make some tea, Mia offered to the guest. You know, this whole story is very strange, Jake said after taking a few sips of the fragrant herbal tea. I thought that maybe I have some distant relatives, and one of them looks like me. My mother has been gone for a long time, and my father left her right after I was born. That's another reason why it couldn't have been me. I find it unacceptable to leave a woman expecting my child, although once, this principal played a cruel joke on me. Jake paused, clearly reluctant to delve into the past. I found some distant relatives, he continued after a minute of silence. But none of them looked like me. One morning, it dawned on me, maybe my mother had twins, but she realized she couldn't manage them on her own and decided to keep just one baby. Of course, she was ashamed later and couldn't tell anyone about it. I eagerly went to look for the archive, but unfortunately, it was all destroyed in a fire many years ago. The only thing I managed to find was midwife Lindsay. I wanted to speak with her, but she slammed the door in my face and asked me not to come back. Something doesn't add up, Mia sighed. If your mother had twins and kept one, what's criminal about that? They continued drinking tea in silence. I'll speak to her myself, the midwife, Mia said, unexpectedly to herself. The entire next night, Mia couldn't sleep. She thought about how to approach Lindsay. Simply coming and telling everything as it was would be pointless. She wouldn't tell the truth anyway. It was 9 a.m. Mia was admiring herself in the mirror, dressed in a strict gray suit. She tinkered a bit to get used to her new role. By noon, Mia was at her destination. She hadn't worn heels in so long that she could barely stay on her feet. Taking the elevator up, she approached the door and rang the bell. Who's there? A voice called from the other side. Hello, my name is Mia. I'm from the prosecutor's office. What do you need? We're investigating a case from 30 years ago that happened in our hospital. After losing the archive, we're trying to recover the data related to it. And if you don't want to keep meeting with the investigator, I'd like to ask you a few questions. It won't take much time, but it will ensure that you won't be bothered again, she said insistently. I don't know anything. Leave me alone, the elderly woman replied plaintively. I'm not accusing you of anything. But if you refuse me, the police will harass you with their questions, Mia continued confidently. The door opened. The woman asked Mia to come in. After a brief hesitation, she led her to the kitchen. Tell me, did you assist with Kimmy's birth? Mia asked calmly. The midwife turned away at first, then approached and sat at the table. It seems I can't escape this sin before I die, Lindsay said dejectedly. I'll tell you everything, and you can do whatever you want with me, Lindsay said. Mia silently nodded her head. I was young, Lindsay began her story. I wanted to live well. My childhood was spent in poverty, and only through enormous effort did I manage to get a good education. But the dream of a rich, carefree life did not come true. I began to set my sights on wealthy men, hoping to marry and solve all my problems in one fell swoop. There was a deputy minister in our city, Ethan. I was very eager to get him, but it turned out he had recently gotten married. But I thought, maybe I could at least get a secondary role. He had been showing me interest even before the wedding, and after that, he completely ignored me. I fell in love with him, foolishly, to the point of obsession, living only for him. One day, he came to me and asked, Lindsay, if I needed your help, would you help me? I didn't even think about what he meant. I thought maybe this was my chance. Without a second thought, I quickly replied, yes. He kissed me in thanks. That was the end of it. A week later, he came to my work and said, Lindsay, sign this document with the boss. Just make sure he doesn't read it, say it's very urgent. I signed some document with the boss and immediately handed it to Ethan as I left the office. A week later, Edward was accused of embezzling state property on a large scale. Lindsay rested her head on her hands and cried. I felt so awful then, she said after a moment of silence. What could I do? Go and say that my lover, who was the deputy minister, framed me and Edward. At that moment, all my love ended, but I didn't understand how difficult it would be to get out of this. I decided to break up with Ethan and told him so. He smiled sinisterly and replied, Lindsay, you're not serious. You can't leave me. Only I can leave. Otherwise. I understood that otherwise, I could face Edward's fate. One day, he came to me and said sadly, well, Lindsay, I had a good time with you, but it's time to move on. Life is so short. He turned to open the door but stopped. In honor of our unforgettable friendship, fulfill my last request. I will disappear from your life forever, he said. My heart was pounding wildly in my chest. You won't refuse me, will you? He said, looking at me menacingly. I knew I had no other choice. Tomorrow, Kimmy will be transferred to your department. She's pregnant with twins. Your task is to make sure she has only one child, Ethan continued. I was trembling with fear. Don't worry, you won't have to kill anyone. You see, my wife turned out to be infertile, but recently she's been obsessed with having children. So I thought, why not make both parties happy, he said heartlessly. Are these your children? I asked him. Do you think it's so hard to seduce a simple country girl who will now wait for me for the rest of her life? Do you doubt my abilities? Slightly offended, Ethan said, don't worry, you won't have any problems at work. You'll induce labor at night. One newborn should be born dead. I'll take care of the rest myself. I did everything as he instructed. A week later, I heard that Ethan, the deputy minister, had moved to another city with his wife. I never saw him again. And what happened to Kimmy? Mia asked. I felt sorry for her. She was a good girl. At first, she suffered so much that one baby died, she was exhausted, and her milk dried up. Then she suffered for a long time because her lover left her and went away with someone else, Lindsay said. Mia left Lindsay's house. To say she was in shock would be an understatement. Oh my God, who did I live with for almost 3 years? Who is this person? She couldn't hold back her tears. Mia's eyes were still red from crying when she knocked on Jake's office door. Come in, she heard a familiar voice. Mia opened the door but couldn't enter. Her legs gave way, and she slowly began to slide down the door. Jake rushed to her. He helped her sit down and gave her a glass of cold water. "Jake, you really do have a twin brother." "I lived with a stranger for almost 3 years," she sobbed uncontrollably. "I always loved you, but it turns out I was living with an outsider." "Mia, calm down. This wouldn't have happened if you knew the truth," Jake said, holding Mia by the shoulders and trying to calm her down. Mia suddenly lifted her head sharply. "Jake, I don't understand. Why? Why did he do this to me? If he wanted me, then why did he leave? What's the point? What's behind all this? If he found out he had a brother, then why didn't he come to me? If he saw us and fell in love with you, then why did he reject his own son?" Jake sighed heavily. After a moment of silence, he took Mia's hand and said, "Let's wait until you calm down a bit, and we'll meet at the park by the fountain this weekend." "Are you asking me out on a date?" she asked, her spirits lifting a little. "Yes, and this time, no friends," he said with a laugh. Mia spent the next few days in torment. She thought about why she hadn't been able to recognize that the person with her wasn't Jake. But soon she realized she was just afraid of losing him. The weekend arrived, and Mia went to the city. She arrived early and wanted to walk around familiar places. She was standing by the poster outside the Star Cinema when someone called out to her. "Jake, you're here too?" she asked joyfully, but then stopped. Standing in front of her was Jake, or rather his double. Despite the resemblance, Mia could clearly see the difference. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" she asked anxiously. "Please, can we talk somewhere else?" the young man who resembled Jake said calmly. "I'll explain everything now." The man led Mia along several buildings and turned around a corner. "Mia, I know I was unfair, but I had my own personal reasons. I knew from a young age that my mother wasn't my real mother. From early childhood, my father never loved me. When I was 10, my stepmother brutally beat me with a belt. Eventually, I found out where they got me from. In a fit of rage, she told me everything. She said that my father was aiming for a position as the head of a large company, but for that, he needed to have a spotless reputation, a loving husband, a caring father, the head of a good family. In public, they would kiss me, but at home, they often locked me in a room alone, sometimes forgetting to give me food. The truth that I had a real mother and a biological brother made me both happy and miserable. I imagined many times how I would go to them and say, 'Here I am.' But the pain of what I had endured and the resentment towards my mother for not searching for me clouded my happiness with a thick veil. Over time, I began to feel envy towards Jake. When I was almost 16, my father died. I don't know from what, and I didn't care. My stepmother quickly got rid of me and took everything for herself. I was left on the street. At first, I lived in an abandoned garage. I wandered around searching for food. One day, a guy named Alex noticed me. He occasionally repaired cars in his garage. I caught his eye, and we started working together. That's how I got money and then a roof over my head. But my envy towards my brother only grew stronger over time. When I first came here, I learned that my mother had long been gone. I also heard that Jake had everything, a home, education, and a beloved girlfriend. I wanted him to experience what I went through. I knew we looked very similar, so I decided, let me be happy now, and he won't be. I came up with this whole plan, but I didn't consider one thing: I couldn't love you. When you told me you were pregnant, I knew I'd have to marry you. I was lucky that you hadn't yet mentioned official registration before this point, but now you could see not only my passport but also my real name. Jake. Unfortunately, my stepmother was never very imaginative, so she named me the same as my brother. Mia, I'm sorry. I've only made things worse for everyone, and most of all for myself. The man began to step back and, after a few moments, fled. Mia stood there, feeling devastated. She gathered all her strength and headed towards the fountain. Mia, what's wrong with you? Jake asked, looking at her pale face. I spoke with him, she barely managed to say. It seems he's been coming here before, he just didn't have the courage to talk to me. What did he say? Jake asked anxiously. Mia recounted their conversation. And what will you do now? I'll just let it all go and move on. If he wants to see his son, I won't stop him, she replied somewhat detachedly. Mia. Jake took her hand. Please, forgive me too. Mia looked at him in surprise. When you left me, I was very angry with you. I wanted so badly to be happy so that one day you would find out that I managed to do it without you. When I started working in Washington, the chief physician's daughter took an interest in me. I told myself that maybe I'd have better luck here. I lied to myself that I didn't love you anymore. My pain and blindness kept me from seeing the woman who was used to living only to please her whims. But after the wedding, I quickly realized that I didn't love her and that our family had no meaning. A year later, I felt that the end of our relationship had come, but my ex-wife was cunning and sly. She claimed she was pregnant. We had disagreements, so it seemed possible. Of course, I decided to stay with her. It was hard for me because I knew I didn't love her. I tried to spend as much time as possible at work. But one day, I urgently needed to come home to pick up some documents. I heard strange noises coming from my wife's bedroom. I opened the door and saw her with her lover. I greeted him, picked up the fake belly from the floor, and left the house forever. My ex-wife's father forced me to return, promising that no one else would hire me. He kept his promise, and I had to go back home. That's why I was so angry when you said you were pregnant with me. Mia stroked Jake's hands and leaned into his shoulder. They stood silently, trying to make up for the time lost before their separation. Spring was in full swing. The air was filled with the scents of lilacs and May roses. Jake, Mia whispered, feeling his arms holding her tightly, protecting her from all hardships. Let's hurry up. Mia's neighbor shouted, throwing open the gates. The young guys, like mushrooms, stormed into the yard. Don't waste our time here, give us the bride quickly. If you make us wait too long, we'll take more from you, roared the familiar bass of Alan. The door opened, and Catherine entered the porch like she was on a throne. We have very expensive merchandise. Don't rush us, or we'll give her to someone else, a loud female voice said. The guys wanted to respond to Mia's grandmother's call, but then the door opened, and the bride appeared on the threshold. The guys nudged the excited Jake forward. He approached Mia and loudly asked, "Will you marry me?" Silence fell. Mia hesitated for a moment, but then, with cries of yes, yes, threw herself around her beloved's neck. The yard erupted in cheers. Jake took Mia's hand and led her to the car. Stopping in front of the door, he said with a bit of concern, "Isn't she coming? Maybe she's delayed and will arrive a little later?" Trying to calm Jake, Mia answered. The car had just turned onto the main road when a taxi stopped in front of them. A young man with a huge bouquet jumped out of the front door and ran up to the newlyweds' car. "Jake, we thought you weren't coming," the groom sighed in relief. "Come on, brother." "How could I miss this?" panted the new passenger, handing the bride a bouquet of her favorite flowers.